Hello and welcome to another video on the JJ Think Tank. So today's video will be linked to the previous one I made. So if you did watch that video, we came to the conclusion that in many ways mental illness is not something that actually exists in the traditional sense. Yes, by traditional sense I mean that it is something that is linked to a brain disorder, yes, or a physiological disorder, because this is the psychiatric and psychological view. I made the remark that perhaps initially this is the case. So I gave the example of an alcoholic, yes, who constantly drinks alcohol, and if he continues down this path, then of course he would become mentally ill, because alcohol changes the brain chemistry, yes, of a person. But after our discussion, we realized that the source of what we call mental illness is actually being part of a game that is not in your best interest, we could say, or not even that. Being part of a game that you don't even realize you're in, yes? And this is Szasz, Thomas Szasz, yes, the author of this book that we analysed, alludes to game theory and how life is a game, a game that has many games within it. The games are infinite, remember, we covered this in the previous video. And because this is the case, all we have to do to improve our mental state is to be aware of the games we are playing and to choose which games we play, yes? In many senses, this is how we are able to heal, yes, our supposed mental illness. So before I move on to my other article that is directly linked to game theory, psychology, and the books that I read that concern this topic, let me read this important paragraph from Thomas Szasz's book, yes, which goes as follows, yes. When we realize that the rules of the game and the very game itself, which we have been participating in all along, are not necessarily perceived and abided by in the same way by others around us, we have three choices. So we either submit to another person's coercive rules, we withdraw, or we become aware of our own game and that of others and try to reach a compromise. And this last strategy is how Thomas Szasz interprets the process colloquially named as growing up, yes. And this is true when we think of people who are immature, who do not grow up. They do not compromise. Yes, they are selfish. They still act as a petulant child. They do not listen to the others' wishes and demands. You could say they lack empathy. And to reach a level of mental health, quote unquote, yes, we should strive to, of course, overcome this stage and be able to compromise, yes. there are two other strategies. One is to withdraw completely from society. uh, many people do this. Yes, they completely withdraw. They enter their island. We can think of, for example, Ted Kaczynski. He's quite a famous man. He was a very intelligent American of Polish descent, actually, who recognized, yes, the pathology of society, and decided, you know what, I'm not playing along with these games. I'm not submitting myself to the power structure, and I will live in my cabin in the woods and withdraw. Yes, so of course this is a very extreme strategy. I wouldn't advise it. Of course, for some people, it's the only option, or the option they choose. Perhaps if you really are self-reliant and you are able to pursue such a strategy, then maybe this could be the option for you. But ideally, the third option is the best one. Yes, we become aware of our own game, those are the game of others, and we try to reach a compromise. Yes. The first option is also not good, because if we do submit totally to another person's coercive rules, eventually we become frustrated, we become passive aggressive or angry, because we feel that our goodness, what we could possibly provide, yes, to society is not occurring. Yes, so this option also is not a good one. So ideally, we need to reach the third stage. Yes, we need to adopt the third option. And at this moment in my video, I want to dive more into this idea of Szasz, yes, how we can grow up, and expand on how the games that we play and that others play, how they shape us, yes, and how if we play the game correctly, the result of the game is positive for all parties. But if we do not play the game correctly, then negative outcomes arise, yes. And I think two books are relevant to this topic. One is called Games People Play by Eric Berne, and the second one is called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. So this second one by Robert Greene, on first viewing perhaps it's not related, yes, it's about power, but when we read it, we can notice the manipulation tactics that other people can use, and it's kind of a defense manual, yes, because if we notice how people are manipulative, if we notice their negative behaviors in advance, if we can predict their behavior, and also the behavior of ourselves, if we notice our own pathological behaviors, then we can avert negative outcomes in advance, yes? So this is why I also included this book in my article here. And the title of my article is as follows: Are you unknowingly participating in a game that is not in your best interest? And by game, or games, referring to Eric Berne, games are conversations between people, and a set of conversations, a set of behaviors that together create three types of relationships. So we have the healthiest type of relationship is the relationship between an adult and an adult. The second type is between a parent and a child. And the third one is also between a parent and a child, but with the roles reversed, yes, depending on the on the people in question. And after reading this book and the various games that Eric Berne presents, we can realize how in many situations in our own lives we also played these games. Yes, some of these games are actually quite funny because you notice, oh yes, this has appeared in my life. I've noticed these kind of behaviors before. I've been perhaps playing the role of a child or a parent, or in my own personal relationships, or I've noticed that I played the role of a toxic, individual, or the other person was toxic. Yes. And then using case studies from our own lives and the examples that Eric Berne presents, we can see a lot of similarities between how the relationship ends up. Yes, what happens at the end of these interactions, we could say, yes, between two people. So some of these games, these interactions, are more serious. Others are less so. But even the ones that are not serious, they can eventually lead to a result that is still negative for us. A lot of these games are part of a family structure, but others are games that appear in institutions even, yes? So we can think of the psychological or psychiatric institution. Well, we can consider it as an institution, as a formal environment where we have a patient and a therapist. And because Eric Berne was a psychologist and a psychiatrist, he also provides examples of games in this environment that at times were, yes, pathological. Yes, they didn't improve the patient's situation. Much like what Szasz noted down in his book. Yes, so we covered this in the previous video, where Szasz said that the psychologist, he would legitimize his profession by playing along, yes, with the patient and and kind of, we could say, even accepting his or her view of their mental illness, yes, their hysteria and so forth. So the main thesis of Eric Berne, what I found to be the most important in his book, is that there are three actors in these games that we play. There is the child, the adult, and the parent. And the person who reaches the adult ego state first in any of these mind games or patterns of behavior, the person, yes, who reaches this state first is the winner. Yes, so now let's go into some of these games that Eric Berne describes. And I'll just read the titles, the names of these games, and it will be self-evident after what these games are about, yes, and we can instantly recognize and remember such situations in our own personal lives, yes. So one is called, for example, "If It Weren't For You." So if it weren't for you, I would have done this. I would have achieved this. I would have been able to go somewhere or to do something. This is a pathological game because it blames the other person for restricting the life of the person who does the accusing. Another one, for example, is, "Why does this always happen to me?" So sometimes we're on the receiving end of some negative events or actions, and instead of taking responsibility and trying to improve our lot and our situation, we say, "Oh, why does this always happen to me?" Yes. Another obvious one is, "See what you made me do." This is an obvious one. Or now I've got you. Now I've got you. Huh? So perhaps you did something bad, yes, and someone realizes and they make a mountain out of a molehill, yes. So you did something wrong, yes, it was bad, but they then accuse you of being morally inferior, yes, or they accuse you of being a bad person. Or why don't you? So this one, well, why don't you? Yes, but it's the title of the game. So this is when a person asks for advice, but when he receives this advice, then he makes an excuse for not following through and taking on this piece of advice. So again, it's a form of avoiding responsibility. Yes, on the one hand, he's trying to show that he is thinking of serious things, of trying to improve, of taking on some responsibility. But then when he receives the advice, then he doesn't carry out the appropriate action. Yes. So there's a lot of games here, and when you read the descriptions and what they involve, they will definitely make you laugh, because you will start to remember different situations, yes, in the past in your own life, and you can notice times when you perhaps played a role in these games, both perhaps a positive role and also a negative one. So the benefit of this book, really, by Eric Berne, is to allow us to reflect on these games and to go up a level. By this I mean to the meta level, and kind of viewing these games as a source of entertainment and noticing patterns of behavior well in advance in order to allow our adults to take over, to enforce more direct communication in order to discontinue these pathological games. And the glory of adult relationships, the main benefit of being an adult in various interactions is that they result in a more horizontal, egalitarian relationship where there is a net benefit for all. And so, of course, this is healthy, yes? This is what we want. So, before I finish, let's cover now Robert Greene's book. And as I said at the beginning, reading this book, we should treat it as a defense manual, yes? So, by reading it, we can protect ourselves from manipulators, from schemers. Many people criticize the book, but I think they view it in the wrong way. Robert Greene, he isn't advocating such an unethical, amoral stance towards life. He's just presenting the way that humans behave, or that how they can behave. Yes. And this is how we should view the book. We should just read it for this purpose, in order not to be on the receiving end of some negative behavior from others. So I only included one law in this article, and it's called "Do not commit to anyone." And this law is useful because it enforces and reiterates the idea that we should strive for self-efficacy, for a locus of self-control, because this is the source of mental health, really, or the idea of feeling good. When we feel in control of our lives and our actions, then our mental health improves, yes? When we feel that our locus of control is elsewhere, not within ourselves and our own minds, that's when we start to break down, yes? And Greene presents this law using a comic Jewish folklore story. So there are three animal participants, a cat, a dog and a fox. And the cat and the dog are fighting over a bit of cheese and are unable to come to a negotiated settlement. So they can't divide this cheese between themselves, so they go to the fox to settle the issue. And the fox, he divides the cheese, but he's sly, because obviously when we think of a fox, the first word that comes to our mind is slyness, yes? This fox is sly, so he makes one portion slightly bigger than the other, which begins a negative cycle for the dog and the cat, because the dog begins to complain that his portion is smaller than the cat's portion. So the fox, he looks, he acknowledges, and bites off a bit of the cat's portion, yes? The cat then complains that her part is smaller. The fox again looks and does the same. And this continues until neither have anything left. So this story is quite memorable because it shows the power that we can get from not committing, yes, to another person's rules or laws. So having said this, we remember now what Szasz wrote, where we shouldn't commit to another person's coercive rules. Well, we can, but that's not the best option, right? The best option is to compromise. So I guess that's the end of my video for today. These two books are great in exposing negative behavior, negative relationships, negative patterns of conversations even that can lead to negative outcomes. And for this reason they're useful. They're very useful to read. They're not too long, as you can see. They're both relatively short. And they help us to notice the pathological games that we can sometimes play. So that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found out something interesting and something useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.